What is the dumbest 100% serious thing someone has said to you? Here in the UK we get a lot of American kids shows, especially big ones like SpongeBob, Animaniacs, etc. These shows normally have a 4th of July special about the Declaration and War of Independence point with that as the topic of conversation. This is genuinely a discussion I had with someone when we were 14. Me, The Simpsons made a joke about that during episode about the 4th of July. I forget the name of, friend. Yeah, I watched that one. The British sound like dicks. Me, slow blink come again, friend. You know, the British. The guys they always talk about when they do that kinda specials. I bet we could take them. Me. Daniel, what country do we live in, friend? England. Q very quick explanation of British geography, with Daniel refusing to believe he was British until he went home and asked his mum. Edit. Holy shit, I had no idea this thread would explode like it has, especially granted I posted late. For those not sure about the difference between the UK, Great Britain, England, English and British, including any other Daniels out there, here's a vid which clears it up nicely. https://www.youtube.com/ Some people have also called bullshit saying nobody could be that stupid unless there are other factors. For an explanation of how he ended up so oblivious, here it is. It's actually a bit tragic/infuriating. If you staple a horse to a waterfall, will it fall up under the rainbow or fly about the soil? Will he enjoy her experience? What if the staple tears into tears? Will she be free from her staply chains or from to stay forever and ever above the water? Who can save him? The horse, but someone of girth and worth, the capitalist pig, who will sell the solution to the problem he created. A staple remover flies to the rescue, carried on the wings of majestic penguin who bought it at Walmart for $9 and several more euro cents, clutched in its crabby claws, rejected from its frothy maw. When the penguin comes, all tremble before its fishy stench and weep like abjecture. Recoil in delirium, ye who wish to be free. The mighty Rockapa is here, to save your soul from eternal bliss and salvation. And so, the horse was free, carried away by the south wind, and deposited on the vast plain of soggy dew. It was a tragedy in several parts, punctuated by moments of hedonistic horsefuckery. The owls saw all, and passed judgment in the way that they do. Stupid owls are always judging folks who are just trying their best to live shamelessly and enjoy every fruit the day brings to pass. How many more shall be caught in the terrible gyre of the waterfall? As many as the gods deem necessary to teach those foolish monkeys a story about their own hamburgers. What does a monkey know of bananas, anyway? They eat, pop, and shave away the banana residue that grows upon their chins and bowel sacs. The owls judge their asses. Always the owls, and when the one-eyed caterpillar arrives to eat the glazing on your window pane, you will know that you're next in line to the trombone of the ancient realm of the flutterbies. Beware the ravenous ravens and crowing crows. Mind the cowing cows and the lying lions. Ascend triumphant to your birthright, and wield the mighty twig of Petalonia, favored land of gods and goats alike. I had a Marine private first class tell me that the Marines don't have tanks, while I was a Marine tanker from a detachment, which was tasked with teaching infantry/tank integration. For fact's sake, I could literally see our tanks not far from where we were standing. Edit. Oh, I remembered another stupid thing. Before I moved to England, a kid in my class, 8th grade, told me that it was technically illegal to do so because I didn't speak English. We are both American. Maybe he gets a pass for his stupidity because he was young at the time, but damn was that dumb. He also thought that Japan dropped an atomic bomb on Pearl Harbor because he saw the preview for the movie Pearl Harbor, which featured a behind the bomb shot of the crippling blow dealt to the US Arizona. His justification was that he thought that only atomic bombs dropped like that. I guess conventional bombs just float about until they make contact with something. I also told him that the Civil War was fought between the American South and Canada. I told him that the American North was neutral, which resulted in him arguing with our history teacher about it. I guess I'm grasping at low hanging fruit here. Second edit, drunk edit. While teaching tank/infantry integration, I gave a lecture on the strengths and limitations that tanks have, and how cooperation between infantry and tanks could better ensure mission accomplishment, and then had my guys familiarize an infantry company with the tanks, letting them crawl all over a tank. This saw gunner approached me and, without any self-awareness, explained to me that he has more tactical utility than a tank because he is mobile. I guess a tank's array of specialized optics, enhanced communication abilities, amazing armor, overground mobility, machine guns, that coaxial M240 will shred you at great distances, and my .50 would do even better, and Begaz's 120mm main gun, which could fire an array of specialized rounds. Some of them accurate over several kilometers, isn't as deadly as that one baby-faced lance corporal with his saw. If only that was the only time we even ran into staff NCOs who were so in love with their weapons systems that they'd make claims such as they could take out an M101 with their MK19 40mm automatic grenade launcher. My gunner almost got into a fist fight with a sergeant who thought his HMMWV/Humvee with their MK19 could kill our tank. We'd see them from miles away and be able to engage a target like that far before we would be within their weapons systems range. Even then, 40mm grenades wouldn't really do shit to a tank. I pacified the situation, but I kind of wanted to see my hulk of a gunner beat that annoying snot of a sergeant into the side of his stupid HMMWV. Now I'm just typing to tell stories because I'm drunk and waiting on brisket to get finished. Sorry. I'm a lab tech that works in microbiology. I often find myself explaining to nurses and even doctors why they won't be getting their cultures stat. The phone call usually goes like this: "Nurse, I ordered this blood culture over 2 hours ago. You guys are required to give us stat results in an hour. I want my results and an explanation." Me: "Sir/ma'am, we have no control over how quickly bacteria grows. Cultures can be ordered to be delivered to the lab stat, but we can only work on it as quickly as the bacteria lets us." Nurse: "It sounds to me like you just don't want to work. I'll be writing a patient safety report. What's your name?" Me: "It's very common for nurses to act shitty towards lab techs for things that are either directly their fault or things we otherwise have zero control over. Every time a nurse pulls the oh my god, I'm a nurse, I'm a hero, give me everything I want, because you're human garbage." Routine: I keep my cool by remembering that these people think the lab has magic bacteria powder that can help us give an ID and antibiotic sensitivities on a swab in less than an hour. Disclaimer: before people jump down my throat with the "but nurses are superheroes that are perfect human beings that cheat sunshine and love" rhetoric, I'm by no means saying all nurses are like that. Many are very sweet and kind and accept responsibility for their mistakes. However, there is a very notable portion of nurses that take the whole hero worship thing our culture gives them and use it as an excuse to shit all over everyone in the hospital once they leave your bedside. Anyone that works in an ancillary service can tell you a million whole nurse stories. Again, I recognize there are lots of amazing nurses out there, but dear god, there's also lots of shitty nurses. 2. Irrelevant note, just a bit of advice for nurses: be nice to your lab techs. When I worked the front desk in the lab, I would go to the ends of the earth to help a nurse that treated me like a human. When we call a need a red row because you drew the wrong tube, or because it clotted/hemolyzed/whatever, ask us what might have went wrong, so you can learn to avoid that in the future. Oftentimes it's just something small in your phlebotomy routine that's causing problems. Nurses seem to think we do that shit to their samples to get out of working, but it's always more work for us to call you guys, knowing we are gonna get shit on about it and have to document it. TLDR of whole post: nurses think we can grow and ID bacteria in an hour. Many nurses are awesome, they don't all suck. Nurses, be nice to lab techs and we will do everything we can for you. Handmade a set of foam LARPing arrows to use in my university's annual game of humans vs zombies. It was my 4th time participating, and every year my loadout kept getting lighter and lighter because I realized running was the best way to stay alive. Mods tested the arrows on me to make sure they were safe and played their use for the game. A couple hours into the game, after a few satisfying long-range kills, I get zombie feed. After running a raid with a few other zombs, a girl approaches me and starts yelling at me for my arrows being unfair and painful and that I shouldn't be allowed to use them. I explained that the mods okayed them and I was shot with all 6 homemade arrows point blank to ensure they were safe. She responds with, well, you're a guy. Guys can just take that sort of stuff. You shouldn't be shooting it at girls because they just can't handle it as well as guys. I just said I had a female friend help me make and test them, and she said they were fine as well, jokingly adding that I know a lot of girls that can handle it, and that her saying that all girls can't was kinda sexist. Immediately she goes off on me with the unforgettable line of, I'm not sexist, how can I be sexist? I'm a woman. You can't be sexist against men, adding how her boyfriend was going to fight me and how I should be banned from playing. Everyone in the raid team kinda just looked at her as we were all running and laughed. TLDR, don't shoot zombie girls unless you're a sexist pig that hates all women. This is my time to shine. I keep a list on my phone of silly things my girlfriend says. Here we go. Eating peaches gave me peach fuzz. We were talking about women who have mustaches. Look at all that cotton. We were driving by a bunch of sheep. Watermelon snaps instead of schnapps. She insisted she was correct. None. I asked her to get the CD from my car and she was surprised the band was 9 Inch Nails. She always thought it was 9 Inch Snails. Talking about a soccer game and how the final score resulted in a tie. She asks who won. She belches out songs on the way to work. She thought it was belches and a belt out. Babe, you never seem to amaze me. Instead of you never cease to amaze me. Oh my god, I have to pee so bad my gallbladder is about to pop. Sees photos of Mark Twain. Look, Cole Sanders. I was pretty speechless at this one for a few moments before letting out lots of laughter. A two-way street. Watching baseball. What QTR is it? Baseball is an innings, not quarters. Today's going to be but she texted this after a vacation where there were some buts. She thought that's where Butte came from. C's retirement home. Oh. The sign says all inclusive. We were looking for apartments at the time. Beaver should think about evolutionizing. You mean evolving. Recipe said to buy beef for stew, but didn't say what kind. We were at the grocery store, and she was really frustrated that the recipe she had in her hand didn't specify. For those who don't know, beef for stew is exactly what the packaging says. It smells like Little Caesars in here. Probably because I just ate a Caesar salad. We were road tripping, and my car smelled like leftover food. It was cow beef jerky. That's why it's called beef jerky, babe. I have the memory of a hawk. I was like, lolwood, you mean an elephant steps on nail. I hope I don't get tuberculosis. You mean tetanus? We're a group of 4 friends, and every now and again our wives give us permission to go out with the 4 of us. Obviously in exchange for a new purse, a weekend trip to the in-laws. Well, most married guys will know what I'm talking about. So one of these nights, we are all very excited and hyped up. Big plans. We booked a really nice restaurant and after that we were going to our favorite bar. We're all about to hit 30, so our evenings start of talking about work, family, politics and the state of the economy. We are not proud of it, but we can't help it either. So we get into this discussion about global warming, sustainable energy like solar power, and wind turbines, and boom, out of nowhere one of my friends drops this beauty on us. Windows turbines aren't sustainable at all. They're actually even worse than the traditional power plants. No, they're not. Why would you think that? Think about it. All the wind that we are harvesting. It's Newton's law of motion. If the wind blows through the turbine, it will deplete its energy into the turbine and the wind will eventually disappear. Whole restaurant collectively faciplants. TLDR. My buddy who's a GP thought that wind turbines cause the wind to disappear eventually. One of my old friends from school had some real nuggets of wisdom in our final year. So 18 years old. Firstly, she suggested we could never have a space elevator as any moisture on the elevator would accumulate and get sucked up into the vacuum of space, eventually drawing in all the water on Earth and spewing it into space. Secondly, while we were studying out on the field one day, she took advantage of a moment of silence to say, now what? I think the sun has got to be pretty hot. We looked at her and said, what? To which she replied, this is going to blow your minds, but hear me out. I know in space there's no heat or anything, but yellowy orange things are generally hot, right? And the sun has been yellowy orange for like a really long time. So I believe the sun is actually hot despite the lack of heat in space. Probably because of gamma rays creating a hot atmospheric layer around the sun, allowing it to be hot. She then proceeded to look smug, while the rest of us stared at her, speechless. Thirdly, she didn't believe mice were real. We were talking about how one of our friends, calling her Minnie for simplicity, has a rodent infestation and she decided to bait her mouse traps with cheese, like in the cartoons. Enter our friend who ridicules the plan, at first making us believe she was going to discuss the trope of mice being addicted to cheese. Nope. She sarcastically suggests Minnie should get a dragon or a griffin to guard her house, as they are used to dealing with other mythical creatures. Baffled, we asked her what she meant. Mice. They aren't real. Come on, I thought you guys knew that, to which we asked her to explain her reasoning. Mice are an urban legend, made up so dumb people have an explanation for damaged wires, missing food and holes in boxes and possessions. They can't understand that it's molecular erosion, so believing that a small creature sneaks in to sabotage their stuff and eat their food is the only logical explanation. She laughs. I mean, you guys didn't think a creature based off of Pikachu was real, right? After spending hours attempting to correct her, she grew quiet and began trying to pass it off as an elaborate joke. She also thought 9/11 wasn't named due to occurring on the 11th of September, but because 9 out of 11 people involved in the attacks died that day. One of my, obviously a bit darker humored, friends tried to convince her that it was actually the rating that the US government gave Al-Qaeda for their effort, but she, thankfully, refused to buy it. We eventually convinced her that it was only a reference to the date. A web designer told me there's only one version of HTML, so I do tech support and a customer of mine had a web design company do her email signature to unify the company image across letterheads, stationery, website, etc. When Outlook 2016 came out it had different requirements for the signature to display correctly. The same HTML code looks different on Outlook 2016. So my customer asked me how do we solve this. I told her the design company would do it faster than I would because they have the project files and would probably have adapted their designs for other clients in the same position. Eventually I got a call from the designer's boss because I'm talking shit and it's a technical issue according to the designer. She wasn't unreasonable and I was able to explain to her. Eventually the designer called me himself with a bit of attitude telling me all HTML is like and there's only one version. I was so dumbfounded that I went through a range of emotions and couldn't really figure out the right response. I told him that there are different versions of HTML as the world standard at the moment is HTML5. I asked him if this was their first and only client with Outlook 2016. I continued saying you really must not have a lot of clients because Outlook is very common. I also told him I'd mail him the Microsoft knowledge base article describing the differences and requirements and that he should really test his design in the platform he's developing for. That seemed to have shut him up, his only response being guess I'm gonna have to install Outlook now. I swear it was like this question was designed for me and my family. Well, mostly my sister. To give some context for the following statements, my sister is a 17 years old high school junior at this point and gets pretty good grade, so she isn't book dumb. However, some of the things that come out of her mouth when she doesn't think things through astounds my entire family. I'm gonna give you one of the best ones, but this is just the beginning of what she has said. We have considered making a Twitter account, sheet my sister says, because of how often it happens. In a hoe, my sister is making dinner with my mother in the kitchen. She is in charge of making the salad which she enjoys to do. She then looks to my mother and asks Mom, if I only eat salad like the turtles we have out back, do you think I would grow a turtle shell? Bonus, me and my little brother are sitting at the breakfast table one Saturday morning. He looks to me and says, bet I can get Erica, my sister, to go plant Cheerios in the backyard. Having some faith in my sister, I bet him $5 that he can't. God, was my faith misplaced? My sister walks in and my little brother tells her, hey, you know Mom bought donut seeds for us to plant. She wanted us to wait to plant them because the donut tree doesn't bloom till summer, but I think we should just do it now. What do you think? She immediately gets that kind of wonder-filled gaze that you can only have when you are extremely happy, but then gets skeptical and tells him there is no such thing. He of course is prepared and say yeah here let me get them. Goes upstairs and grabs some cherries he had hid in his pocket right before this, and she faking fell for it. She was out back so fast trying to grow her own donut tree. We ended up telling her it was a lie after she planted the cherries. We never let her live this down. More kitchen stories. Doesn't quite fit the question asked, but I overheard the stupidity worked at a Thai restaurant. A freely hired hostess is bringing an armload of bust dishes over to the pit. She's clearing the excess food into the trash, dumping the extra water or soda into a slop bucket, and is about to get to the teacups and teapot. The teapots come with small, metal pitchers containing a single serving of cream. Evidently the guest didn't use the cream, and as she goes to dump it, the kitchen manager yells from across the kitchen at the plating area, "Wait. What? That cream is unused, right?" "Yay, I think so." "Then you gotta save it. That sheet's expensive, and if nobody's used it, then you dump it in the cream bucket, so we can use it later." "Oh, okay." Where's the cream bucket? Most people would realize that they're being messed with at this point, but my boss saw an opportunity and he took it. "Oh, sheet, right. It's supposed to be right there, but we loaned it to the restaurant next door. Could you go over and ask for it back?" Chipper and agreeable, like any new hire should be, she walks out the door and down the street, evidently ignorant to the howling laughter coming from the kitchen. 5 minutes later, she came back with a faking bucket. We hadn't told the other restaurant about this. It all happened on the fly, after all. But they decided to give her a bucket anyway. She walks back into the kitchen and proudly pours the few tablespoons on cream into this 5-gallon bucket. Before we all lost it again. She provided hours of laughter through the remainder of her employment. I'm a veteran. Was at work one day talking to my colleague who was also a veteran. Topic of discussion: cheap cigarettes in the Middle East. Boss walks and hears me say to him we'd stop in Dubai while on deployment and I'd see guys buying like 3 cartons for themselves. Boss interjects himself into conversation. Has never served, keep in mind. Says to us, yeah, I don't agree with that. We looked confused. I asked him for clarification. He told us that, since he is paying for soldiers, airmen, and sailors' healthcare with his tax money, he does not think military people should be allowed to smoke cigarettes. Sort of waited for a Jew thing with Stu follow-up, but it never came. If he did not have the power to make my life hell, I would have reminded him that income taxes go toward Federal Reserve interest almost entirely, and that the military doctors mostly officers making officers' salaries, meaning they are not paid by military healthcare facilities for every patient they see. Also wanted to remind him that cigarettes are considered commissary, and proceeds or profits from commissary sales actually help finance individual base expenditures. Things that might actually increase budgets, causing more bond issuances, and therefore more interest exp liabilities, to be covered by taxpayers. Being that cigarettes and alcohol are the hottest selling items on base and in ship stores, outlawing their sale on base would simply force us to buy from external sources. Further, soldiers and sailors are not confined to their bases, barracks, and commands when not on duty or deployment. Creating a rule outlawing smoking and drinking would be suicidal for any commanders. They would end up kicking every last service member out of the service, or cause our best warriors either not to join or leave the military before retirement, which would cause a draft to occur every time there was a conflict, which would cause the boss's sons and daughters still in grade school to enter the lottery once they turn 18. Further, the military does not need to allow exemption for young men or women entering colleges. In World War II they were drafting professional athletes and universities were going bankrupt. It is the reason they created the GI Bill. Further, what an idiot for saying this to 2 veterans who have seen and experienced the stress and BS service members need to deal with every day of their lives. People smoke so they do not punch their senior ranks in the face, and smoking and drinking is already outlawed in most facilities or times of the day. People smoke and drink when they are taking a deserved break or off duty after working their butts off and possibly risking lives for less than minimum wages when hours are tallied up. He did not seem to realize this though. What a hole. This'll probably get buried, but this happened Monday, and it's still boggling my mind. Point at a young adult, 18 plus, Bible study. Keep in mind I'm not a part of this particular church. A few weeks back I said to one of the guys offhand that so and so girl was cute. Nothing further. I haven't even spoken to her more than twice since then. I just wanted to express to the guy that I thought she was pretty. Point now. Fast forward to Monday, a few weeks later, and one of the guy leaders pulls me aside after group and says, "Hey Quelly one, I heard you said one of the girls was cute." Probably, yeah, why? Well, could you not do that? Comments like that make them uncomfortable, and since we are a more conservative church, we don't want to upset her, or any other girls. Also, can you not make a joke that the new singles group is a step for the couples group? I'll let you do the mental hurdling I did to try and understand this guy. I know I have a way with words in my personal life, and so I've been respectful of their study. But for some reason, me saying "oh she's cute" and not even to the girl directly makes them uncomfortable. I really didn't have a response, except for saving face and agreeing with the guy. Point people are weird, I guess is all I'm saying. Point I intend to keep going to the study, see what other feathers I can ruffle. P. Yay, finally one I can answer. In 8th grade math class I sat at a table with my friends Dave and Summer. One day I was really bored, so I started dicking around with http://hackirtapa.com/ where you just type random shit on a keyboard and it looks like you're typing technical computer stuff like in the movies. Summer asked me, "Wow, are you a hacker?" Thinking she was joking, I said in full deadpan, yes, I am." She fully believed me, to my surprise. Dave and I thought this was absolutely hilarious, so we kept it going. We kept using HackerTyper and Google Chrome's inspect element feature to make it look like we hacked text on websites, like assignments on our school website, to say stuff like "fuck you no homework today." One math class, Dave and I went as far as we could go with the whole hacking bit. We told her that we had already hacked the NSA and we were going to hack the CIA and FBI when we got home from school. She got really upset and shouted how that was super illegal and how we couldn't just hack the government. She was going to call the police when she got home. The best part is, during this whole outburst, the teacher was walking by our table. He kept a straight face, but I'm guessing he was either really confused or containing his laughter. Years ago, I was working on an exploratory drill rig. There were a couple of two-man crews and we were drilling 400-foot holes looking mainly for gold/silver, but basically anything the client, a large corporation, thought could expect a return on investment. Our client had a number of geologists on site as well. They were taking samples, mapping the mountain, checking our progress, and also performing some preliminary analysis of our drill samples. Amongst these geologists were some postgrad students, master students, etc. One of these guys, I'll call him Charlie, was notorious for just being an empty slate. He was a total trust fund baby, a deadhead, came from a quite wealthy family, didn't ever have to work, and yet was pursuing geology just cause it simultaneously pissed off his dad and fueled his total lack of direction in life. Were we all to be so lucky? The area where we were drilling is located in central Nevada around 9,000 feet in elevation and it's quite rough and very isolated terrain. Anyhow, one day, in the area we were drilling, we came across some adits, or mining excavations, dug into the hillsides, and left over from speculators back in the late 1800s. One day over lunch on the tailgate of a pickup truck, we were discussing how difficult it must have been getting supplies in and out of the area and just the general lifestyle in such remote country. Next a comment came up about these recently discovered adits, and Charlie says, in all seriousness, "Yeah no, I can't figure these things out. I can't tell if they started digging from the inside and worked their way out, or if they started at the surface and dug their way in." The few of us that were present, the senior geologist, a woman postgrad from the geology crew, and my driller and I all made surreptitious eye contact by way of "what the fuck did he just say? Was he serious or just fucking high?" As we were watching him, he was watching us, waiting for a response to his question. Waiting, we all just kinda shuffled our feet, not knowing what to say. One of the geologists mutters something along the way of, well, good question. And the rest of us were trying to maintain straight faces, waiting to see if he was faking with us or not. After another minute or so, it became very clear that he thought he had posed a genuinely serious question. I left the mountain not too long after, and, in that time, he never got an answer from any of us. But what was most peculiar was that he never puzzled the answer out for himself. When I used to be a server, I approached a table, went through my spiel. Hi, I'm Matt. I'll be blah blah blah, yada yada yada. One of them replied, I'm paraphrasing here, oh, we know a Matt Fackernameson from the I can't remember but some such group or another. He goes to some such thing with us on Orcaus in a Raunt or something. Do you know him? Are you guys related? I laughed it off and said something like, oh yeah, because all Matts are related. I'll be sure to say hi at the next meeting of the Matts. The meeting of the Matts thing was a pretty common response for me whenever someone brought up the fact that Matt is a common name. I seriously thought they were joking, but all I got in response was an awkward, deer in the headlights stare from both of them before they looked at each other and then back at their menus edit. I just thought of another one I have to add. I was waiting on a table full of high school teachers. One of them asked me how big the half portion of salmon was. I told her it was 5 ounces. It's been a while, so I don't know if it was actually 5 ounces, and gave an approximate visual representation with my fingers. She looked at the menu and said, oh, Oklahoma. How big is the full portion? I told her it was 10 ounces, and moved my fingers out a little bit. She replied, oh, so the full portion is almost, like twice as big as the half portion? In the Navy I had one chief that was a special kind of stupid. The man was so incompetent at his job that they just kept promoting him. His name was Chief Winslow, although most of the crew affectionately referred to him as Chief Real-Slow. Chief Real-Slow was an it chief, so one would hope that he knew something about anything, but that's just not the way he worked. Things that I've heard from this man. Hey, radio. I can't get a good internet connection, we gonna need to hardwire the satellite. Yeah, some of the sloppiest fools I ever seen. On a scale of 1 to 10 you're about a 3 out of 5. Who I look like to you? Larry Lunchmeat? You think I'm Tommy Tucker the neighborhood sucker? Why you lying? Now I know you lying. I look stupid to you. The other chiefs like to mess with him as well and do simple things you'd think someone working in it could solve, like unplugging the Ethernet cable from his computer. Oh my god, the whole internet just went down. The exchange servers, the domain controllers, everything is down, and we need to get cracking. As he said this, I calmly looked over the top of my coffee as I was sipping it, with Facebook open on one monitor and our exchange server on the other. I reply, you know what, chief? Microsoft just pushed out a major security hotfix today that stopped a massive vulnerability in our network. Everything should be up now. Here, I'll even come take a look. And as I walked in I could easily spot the Ethernet cable was unplugged, so as I walked past I nudged it back into place. The man even praised me for being so diligent in my duties. The man had a dead giveaway that he had no clue what the hell you were talking about. Usually he'd stare blankly past you as he started stammering and agreeing with everything you say. I once convinced the man we needed a new flux capacitor for a server, and I shit you not, he went to the supply officer with an order for one that we made up. The supply officer even played along too. I was hanging out with some friends, being driven around by this girl, and we parked on a very slight hill out on the edge of town. She parked, shut the car down, and for some reason at some point, put it in neutral, or was shifting, and was shocked and delighted that the car rolled down the tiny hill. She seemed like physics had been defied, and her exact words were, holy shit, my car just moved, and it wasn't even on. I wonder if, no, I have to check. And then promptly threw the car into reverse while looking behind her gleefully, waiting for the car to magically go uphill. It didn't. She isn't meta or humorous in any kind of way. This was a genuine moment. Ironically, the same girl was at my house one night drinking homemade wine. At some point she was getting ready to leave and was paranoid for a moment about driving. She only had like half a glass and then reassured herself that, oh wait, it's homemade wine, so that won't show up on a breathalyzer, will it? And smiled as if she had gamed the system. Of course she realized a minute or two later, but the damage was done. A more recent occurrence, we were talking about my pet slug when my ex-girlfriend chimed in to quite seriously ask if snails/slugs turned into moths or butterflies too. Yeah. I had an argument with the senior management at my old firm about their customer email procedure. They had based their procedure on 2 points, the first being that email is less secure than snail mail, and the second being that they had a foolproof method of sending secure data via email. To dismiss their argument that email is less secure than postal mail, I took my company laptop into the meeting and a letter sealed in an envelope. When it came to my turn to speak, I asked the CS director to hack my laptop so he could intercept my emails. Of course he couldn't, as nobody in the room could point. Then I asked him if he could open the envelope, which of course he did. Now, which one do you think is more secure? Then it was time for me to shoot down their second policy, their uber secure method of sending data via email. Their method consisted of sending the information via email in an encrypted zip file. The body of the email would say something like, "I will send the password via a separate email." They then sent the password to the same email address separately. So, we have already established that you need to be pretty smart to hack email. None of you managed it, and yet you are all executive management. So what do you think a hacker is going to do when he intercepts an email that tells them the password is coming in a second message? Do you think he will just give up, or will he just wait 2 minutes for you to send him the password? At a McDonald's once, I order 3 McDoubles and a small fry. Then I go wait to the side and another works brings my order. I look inside my bag, always look, and there are 2 McDoubles. Excuse me, I ordered 3 McDoubles. She takes my bag of food back to look at the receipt that is attached. No, it says you ordered 2, so that's all you get. Me, what? No, I ordered 3. I'm sick and tired of you people trying to steal from us. It says you ordered 2 on the screen, so that's what you get. Me, hell no, I ordered 3. I turn to the original cashier who is watching us quietly. Yes or no, did I order 3? Ok. Yes, he ordered and paid for 3. Well, whatever. And she proceeds to ignore me and not give me my bag of food back. I wait 1 minute, 2, 3. She is ignoring me by keeping busy doing other things very loudly so everyone in the McDonald's can hear. Okay, no problem. I pull out my phone. I'm calling customer support right now. They are going to love this. The manager comes out of the back, grabs my bag of food, puts her MC double inside because there was one there on the side that didn't belong to anyone else, and tells me to have a nice day. I was in a required sociology class in college. We get onto the topics of the honeybee extinction. I'll paraphrase what the professor was saying. Professor, so scientists and beekeepers have been keeping track of honeybee populations and have noticed mass extinctions of honeybee populations. When these scientists and beekeepers were asked what they thought the culprit was, some said it was the fault of African honeybees killing off populations of other honeybees. Pause from professor expecting us to react to what she said. Whole class still silent. Professor, let me repeat that. The fault of the African honeybees. Half of the class erupted in a wow, whoa, holy shit, that's insane. Wow, that's messed up. Completely genuine. My professor tried making the point that there was some internal racism because the scientists pointed to African bees as being the culprit. African bees are killer bees. African honeybees as in referring to a specific species of an animal based on geography. I was so dumbfounded. I sat there trying to analyze if there was something I missed because this argument sounded too retarded for anybody to seriously argue. I still to this day cannot wrap my head around that. I've a few going to share, even though these will probably get buried. My mom met some Australian tourists in a restaurant in SoCal. She found out that they were biking across America for their holiday. They told her that they would be returning to Australia at the end of the week, and she blurted out, "How long does it take to bike from California to Australia?" My youngest sister is very sweet, but she doesn't always stop and think before she speaks. She also has a penchant for eating pickles, Seriously, it's funny how much she likes them. You can buy her a few jars for her birthday and walk away a hero. Anyhow, when I told my family I was moving to Ireland permanently, they were surprised and excited, working out all of the usual questions and making silly jokes. When my little sister chimed in, the first thing she asked was if Ireland has pickles. I smiled and said, no, unfortunately pickles only exist in America. Her response, well, that does it. I'm never leaving America. I won't be able to visit you. Sorry. We laughed, and the conversation moved on. Fast forward a few years, and I get a phone call on my birthday. My little sister gets on the line and says, you lied to me. Pickles exist in other countries. Turns out, my 19-year-old sister was so gullible, she'd believed me for 2 whole years. I laughed so hard I cried. Finally, when I was about 10 or so, we experienced a really bad storm. It was El Nino, in Oxnard, California, out in the farmlands. Trees fell. Lines of power went. Flooding occurred really badly in places like Portunum Point. Anyhow, we had a few trees fall and knock out our power. It was in the hours just after dinner and right before bed. My mom had been bathing my little brother when the power went. She screamed, which made us laugh. Then, she came tearing down the hall, baby brother in a towel and herself in a panic. My stepdad went to comfort her and help while my grandma went and lit some candles for lighting. In all of this, my sister and I were giggling and getting water in pots to boil. You never knew what lines could have broken during the storm, so we followed household earthquake rules at this time. Finally, my mom comes down the hall with my stepdad. She's calmer, but he's holding the baby. She turns to him and says, I hope the power comes on soon. I need to let the bath out. My sister and I stopped giggling, and we are trying to figure out why she wouldn't let the bath water out, when my stepdad says, that's a good idea. You should also see if the toilet still flushes. In a flash, my mom runs down the hall to the bathroom and flushes the toilet. She calls out, it still works. Needless to say, we were all dying from laughter. V. Okay, I actually have 2 from the same friend. 1, we were playing a trivia game at a bar and the question was who signed the Emancipation Proclamation? My friend adamantly defended his answer that it was signed by Martin Luther King Jr. Not even in a joking way. He provided Googled pictures of King singing stuff and said that he was signing it. No one at the table could argue with him because he was having none of it too. A college friend came over to drink one night and brought his Korean girlfriend. Somehow a discussion ensued where he said that Korea was in Africa, but on the eastern, he said, right side of the country, and that's why Koreans were a different color than Africans and why they don't like each other. His experience for this being that the local liquor store lady had said she doesn't trust black people. Again, he adamantly defended his position and could not be dissuaded. Wasn't even drunk yet. The Korean girl never came back. Bonus, one time his girlfriend at the time was driving with us and another person in the car saw a Halloween decoration where 3 ghosts were all coming out of a pumpkin together and one behind the other. They laughed because the ghosts looked like they were having sex because of the positioning. Nothing special, but his girlfriend adamantly and sternly snaps back with, that's stupid. You can't see ghosts. No one talked for about 5 minutes and we could see why they were right for each other after that point. TLDR, buddy of mine thought Martin Luther King Jr. signed the Emancipation Proclamation and that Korea was in Africa. Finally, a question I can shine at. I work at a popular technology store, so I get the people who come in thinking they know everything when in reality they know nothing. But anyways, I guess there's something that someone did that was stupid and not said. So one day, I had a lady come up to me asking me for a serial to USB cable. I had asked her what she was looking to do with it and found out all she wanted to do was hook up the cable to her monitor. So after asking her a few more questions on the laptop and monitor, I walked her over to the VGA cables and showed her that what she would actually need is a VGA, not serial to USB. This lady would not give up the fact that the VGA cable was way too small and would never fit in the spot on her laptop. I stood in that K mile with her for 35 minutes explaining why she didn't need USB to cereal, which eventually led to her asking for someone with a little more knowledge and someone who knows what they are talking about. So I politely smiled and called over my manager, who repeated what I had repeated to her. Now this is something she did not like, and she started to realize she was wrong. So now she was getting upset and her mind was completely stuck on the fact that she needed cereal to USB. As a final resort, I brought her over to our computer, looked up her model of laptop, and asked her to point to the spot she wants to plug this cable in, and to the spot she's supposedly been plugging the cable in. This lady freaking points to the vents on the laptop for the fans. The vents. I can't looked at her and said, "Ma'am, that's just for the ventilation on the fans." To which she replied, "You people here know nothing, I'll go home and grab my laptop and be back to show you." Yup, she never came back with that laptop. I'm Australia, and while on a mission trip overseas I stayed at a mission base with a huge array of people from all over the world. One day an American, the only one there, joined us all at the base. So we are sitting around eating our polenta and the American is telling us about his trip, family, home, etc. He tells us he just finished studying to be a respiratory specialist of some kind and starts explaining it to us. It's all amazing and some of it goes over our heads. He is very intelligent. Then he starts telling us about the trouble he's having. Firstly, he didn't know that he needed an adapter for the PowerPoints and needed to borrow one and wanted to use ours. Excusable, but we had to explain that ours wouldn't help him because they converted to US plugs. Secondly, he arrived in country and discovered he couldn't talk to anyone. I didn't know they wouldn't be able to speak American, not so excusable. Then he explained that he had been unable to buy anything because he didn't know that they had a different currency. We pointed out that his money said America, not Europe. Then to top it all off, he was horrified to learn that we Australians don't celebrate Thanksgiving. We pointed out that it commemorates a celebration of the American Pilgrims, to which he replied, "Well, I suppose that's fair." Next, you're gonna tell me you guys don't have the 4th of July either. Haha, TLDR. Stupid American is stupid. He was actually very lovely and intelligent, just lacked any education on anything outside of the USA. There was this girl, the ex of my then boyfriend. She was surprised he was dating a Jewish girl. That should have been my cue to run. I know. She asked if Jews only dated Jews. I said that, as with Christianity, there are some Jewish people who date only within their culture, and there are those who will date without point. She asked if it was true we only made up 1% of the world's population. I said that, yes, we were a minority among the world's religions, and that interestingly enough, we were also a minority in the US. She was shocked. She thought there were so many Jews because we ran the media and the banks. Yeah, she's one of them. Yeah, it gets better. So she looked at me for a moment. Would you date someone who wasn't Jewish? I point to my boyfriend, who was Lutheran. She chuckled. Right. So promise you won't get offended? No, I don't promise. But ask what you want to know, and I'll try to explain. If you only date inside your faith, and there's only 1% of you throughout the world, doesn't your faith promote incest? I don't even remember how I reacted. All I know is my boyfriend laughed his ass off, and it remained an inside joke of ours for a month or two. Late to the party, but I got a few. One of my friends is not so smart. We all like him. He's a good guy, but let's just say everybody pretty much knows he's not the brightest candle in the church. Over the years, he indeed said countless ridiculous things. I'll only tell a few that I remember. I don't remember exactly how it got on the subject, but he legitimately thought that the alcohol percent on bottles was a quantity. Like, if you drink 2 5% beers, you're now 10% or something. He was proving his point by saying that vodka being 40%, it makes sense, because vodka makes you way drunker than beer. So for him, a 60 ounces or a 26 ounces of vodka would have the same effect on you if you drank it all. It's only when I showed him the tiny little 50 milliliters or something vodka bottle that he understood he was wrong. because he indeed knew that these were not making you as drunk as the 26 ounces ones. Another time we were buying a car for a very good price, but the condition was that we would deliver the guy's dog to friends so they could keep him for a couple months. I think he was going overseas for a while or something. The place we had to deliver the dog was about 300 kilometers away or something, but was pretty much on our way, so it was a great deal. When we pick the car and the dog, the guy gives us 3 huge bags of dog food. I think they were 15 kgs each, not sure. After about 2 to 3 hours of driving, he turns to me and says something like, "We haven't fed the dog yet." Being distracted, I just nod without thinking. He continues, "The guy is a little bit stupid. There's no way we are gonna use all that dog food for the ride." Point unrelated to my friend. A few years back, while hitchhiking in France, a guy picked me up under a relentless rain. At this point in time, France was about to legalize gay marriage. It came on the subject, and he said something like, "That's crazy. You see the economic crisis going on right now." That's it. Not sure how to translate it accurately, but basically for him gays were creating the economic crisis because God was angry or something like that. I just answered something like, "Oh, I didn't know that," and stopped talking. I didn't want to be rude, and he had just picked me up under a mean rain, so I was still grateful. Okay, that's mine. My friends and I were rolling a joint in the car. We were in a dark place. We were hidden quite well, or so we supposed, when a police car arrived. Immediately our friend, whom we call the King, started to say that he had known that it would happen because he had seen them before while we were driving a couple of minutes ago, but because we were going cold turkey on Metroid, that's how we call wasn't. Again, we would not listen to him. And he was right. Again, because it had happened before. Let's say he has an eerie knack for choosing when to roll and not to roll a joint. The officer asked us what we were doing in such a place. We told him we parked our car to go to the pub. Now, the pub was down the road, let's say 300 meters, 0,1864 11 miles, far from where we parked. In addition to that, there was the perfect possibility to park right in front of the pub itself, because it was around 3:00 o'clock in the morning, so no car was parked there. The officer started to check our documents, ID cards, driving licenses, etc. in his car, while he was still pointing the car lights toward ourselves to check what we were doing. So we started to pretend we really wanted to go to that pub. Therefore we were asking each other what we wanted to get there, just a casual conversation, to appear regular citizens that have nothing to do with wasn't. When it went the turn of the King, who was also the driver, he went, "I would like a beer or two." We stared at each other in disbelief and bursted into laughter super loudly. I was sitting in the front seat and I tried so hard to hold myself, but I couldn't help but laughing like an idiot. My 2 friends on the back seats were laughing even more than me, and they were making fun of the King, calling him Mr. Safety and stupid idiot because of what he had just said. It was one of those situations when you know you're in trouble and you should behave yourself, but you simply can't. The officer was super nice. He allowed us to leave, and our burgers tasted delicious. I made an account just to relate this story. In Washington, D.C., peak tourist season is around July 4th through the end of the summer, when everyone's families pile into their subs to bask in the glow of America. It is a terrible time to be an actual resident of DC. In 2007, the week of the 4th, I and some friends from out of town were standing in the brutally long line for the National Archives, the building housing our nation's founding, and other historical documents for public viewing. The line wound throughout the building and down Constitution Avenue due to the crowds. Finally into the primary chamber of the building. The first display case contains one of the 4 original copies of the 1297 Magna Carta still in existence. Like most of the documents at the archives, it is behind highly protective glass. The guy in front of me leans in, scrutinizes the document, and turns away in disgust, saying, "I can't even read this stupid thing," without a hint of irony. Clearly not a history buff, nor did he read the summary next to the document. That would have perhaps explained why the Magna Carta was not in modern English, typed out in Times New Roman. Had he been able to read the 13th century Latin script on parchment, I would have been quite impressed, to say the least. The line continues to move. Before you get to the display cases containing original copies of the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights, there are clear display cases containing reproductions, so that you can more readily read their texts for substance. In the center are the real, original copies weathered by the centuries. My portion of the line finally got to the originals, and a young family of 5 is directly in front of the Constitution. The little boy, about 8 years old, turns to his father and asks, "Is that the real Constitution and Declaration of Independence?" His father responds, "No, of course not. The originals are much too valuable and important to be out in public. These are reproductions made to look old." Then, why were we all standing in line? Why would you have brought your family here to look at a photocopy? I'll never get over the all-encompassing stupidity of that exchange. Chick believed my dick fell off. Had a Craigslist one night stand. I won't do the whole story, but we tried to befriend with benefit. The rubber caused a red mark on my head. Turned out to be an allergic reaction, but for a few days I was concerned, since we were chatting like friends. When she asked how I was the next day, I voiced my concern, but voiced I didn't think it was an issue and was overreacting. Few days later it's gone. After running to the bathroom to check every itch. Few days later, how's her dick? Being funny, I replied, "It fell off." "Oh my god, how?" "I'm so sorry." She asked details. I explained it, as if I was taking a shower and it just fell off. Like it just plopped on the floor. No blood, kinda like a cartoon. No gore or any type of believable explanation other than my dick fell while I was washing it. Now I have no attached cork to my body point. If that wasn't enough, I lost respect for her. Edit: for her intelligence as a human, not a woman. Let's clear that up now, lol. And pushed further and stated she should probably go see a doctor to make sure she is okay, treating it very seriously, like someone would tell someone with AIDS to get checked, just to laugh at her reaction before telling the truth that I was fine. I was then told I was stupid. How could anything happen to her? She doesn't even have a dick. I never wrote back, "Do not stick your dick in stupid." So thankful for that condom rash. My aunt, whom I love dearly, is constantly saying she'd like the other posts here. Some I can recall off the top of my head. She wanted to know how to make potatoes. We explained various cooking methods, but no, she wanted to know how to make them. Eventually we figured out that she didn't realize potatoes were grown. She believes that north is synonymous with up, therefore, north is heavenward, and south is into the ground. This isn't saying so much as doing. She bought a brand new laptop to replace her broken one that wouldn't turn on. The broken one had become unplugged without her realizing it. This is probably the most egregious example, but she is constantly saying stupid and or insane shit about technology and the internet. Tech support with her is always a fun time. She believed that her internet, now ex-boyfriend, owned 2 biscuit factories in England, because there are biscuit factories, and 1 biscuit factory is insufficient. She is constantly getting catfished because she is maximally gullible, but she doesn't have any money, probably because she buys laptops to replace non-broken ones. She is a preschool teacher and probably the sweetest person I know. I would absolutely trust her to educate a 3-year-old. No one older, though. I was doing a practical with a guy in an A-level biology class, and he had to dilute a substance. He needed to get 10 milliliters total in each test tube, right? Not hard at all. Apparently it was. I was doing another part of the practical, and he said he was done with the dilutions. I checked the tubes, and they were all different volumes. Okay then. The following conversation ensued. Me, why are these all different? They all had to be 10 milliliters. Him, they are all 10. Me, whole tops of tubes level. No, they're not. Look, this one has almost twice as much. Him, no, it just looks higher, cause it's less diluted. Me, what? You put 10 milliliters in total, right? 2 of distilled water and 8 of substance, no more or less. Him, yeah, it just looks like more cause it's thicker. Me, no, it's a different volume. It'd be the same volume, just a different concentration if you had put 10 in all of them. Him, yeah, it looks like more cause it's got more pure substance in it. He wouldn't get it, and I had to do the entire practical in my own time because his faking it up meant that we both got marked down. My friend, while I was explaining what love is and why we feel it, using evolution as a secular way to clarify it, argued in such an idiotic manner, I began to contemplate suicide as I listened on. This is what was said: evolution isn't real because rant about it being impossible for one microscopic life form to, over years, become an elephant, and science was made by humans, and human knowledge is fallible. Now, I'll have you know, my friend is a 15-year-old freshman to this very day, and we are enrolled in a STEM school. But, rather than do some actual fact-checked research to use, he busts out the ultimate source of knowledge, wisdom, and power, the Holy Bible. Because why not use something that clearly translated by kings for decades as well as man-made, over peer-reviewed tests and extensive research which have been 99% proven by the scientific community itself. But wait, it gets even better. He says the Bible is real because it has predicted so much. In one part, God talks about how the earth will have constant hurricanes, floods, storms, and new incurable diseases will arrive. Right. When I thought things couldn't get any more depressing, I heard this load of shit come out his mouth. The Big Bang Theory isn't possible, because how can something come from nothing? Then there's the worst of the rest, the freezer to my Goku. See? I was right. Goku would totally rap Superman. Look at these comments. For starters, this was a YouTube comment section. In what way would that prove a factual point? Why are you debating Goku v Superman, when it's already been established you don't know any other feats on Superman? What does this prove exactly, and how does it affect my life? I'm going to drop a few customer interactions here, because people at Big Lots are faking idiots. I have a dude that calls every other day asking if we sell alcohol, and when I say no he starts to get pissed and argue that he bought vodka at our store before, and I always just end up hanging up on him. A lady I was ringing up asked for a rewards card, and when I asked her for her info she just gives me the sour as face and says you have no right to that information, and when I cancelled the card she told me to call my manager. Mayo. A teenager asked me, hey, do these hair clips work? And I kind of just stutter like, if they clip in your hair? And she got irritated and was like, what else would I mean? Like, what the hell kind of question is that? An elderly man called me a liar because my name badge says stock leader, and continues to tell me a little girl, like, you can't do hard labor if you're a stoker and unload trucks. Why are you on register then? Because we don't get trucks daily. A dude wanders into the warehouse and gets confused because he thought it was another part of the store. I don't know how he even thought that this is about a co-worker. She is so obnoxiously stupid and incompetent. She constantly will call me up to the front just to print her item tickets when I've shown her about 4 times. When she signs a customer up for a rewards card when it faking tells you what to do, will constantly forget to ring things up and let the customer leave. And yo, if I ever need her attention for her to do anything I have to scream her name at her when I'm like 5 feet away from her, and even when I ask the question I have to repeat it 3 times before she faking does it. I asked her to find an item, but one with a ticket on it, and she will either come back without the item after 5 minutes and just ignore that she was supposed to be doing something, or she will bring me a different item. It is seriously crazy that she can even get a job when she cannot answer a question worth shit. So she just calls a manager up to answer a simple question like, where are your tools? Like, yo, a guy threatened to call my manager if I didn't use my employee discount for him. That was funny because he got so pissed when he found out I can't do that. A group of children and a mom came in literally as we were closing the doors, and they went straight to furniture just to sit on the couches. So I just go on the intercom saying, we are closed. If you are not buying anything, please leave. LMAO. For reference, I have a BS in chemical engineering and a PhD in biomedical engineering. Point after explaining that I work on curing brain cancer. Lady, oh, you're saving people's lives. How neat. Me, well actually, we are doing this in rats right now. Lady, wow. That's so amazing. How do you know which rats have cancer? She legitimately thought I ran around finding wild rats with brain cancer and then tried to cure them. I didn't have the heart to correct her. Me, while looking out over 2 acres of solid woods, there's a remote control plane stuck in that tree. My dad, where? Me, next to the leaf. Me, To a male friend with a twin sister, are you two identical twins? Never lived that one down. Point classmate from Queens, why do they put cows on milk cartons? Me, what do you mean? Classmate, why cows? Why not another animal? Me, he had no idea milk was from cows. Tutoring a biology student in physics, doing one of those calculate how high the ball flies when you throw it problems. Student, I don't understand the gravity part. Me, what part of it? Student, well, how you can throw the ball up in the first place if it's a constant force. Me, well, how do you think it's possible to jump up in the air? Student, oh, I thought gravity just turned off for a second. I noped out of there, changed my major from biology to engineering the next day, and never looked back. Getting ready to go fishing. Me, looking in the fridge, where'd you put the worms? Civil engineer from Brooklyn, in the freezer. Me, they'll freeze to death. Civil engineer, they're alive. Civil engineer, all cars are actually only one-wheel drive. Walking out of a physical chemistry exam. Classmate, what did you get for number 2? Me, 98 Kelvin. Classmate, oh, you did it wrong. I got negative 148 Kelvin. Bless her heart. Point professor, upon discovering I'm the valedictorian of my class, I guess you're a good engineer, for a woman.